All right, so the first thing that I want to talk about is once again, if you have your virtual machines up and running in Meta CTF, just through the class and through the labs, remember you power those down or destroy those at the end of all your labs. Otherwise, you're just burning money at that point. All right, so let's go ahead and let's talk a little bit about advanced endpoint protection. Now, I'd mentioned that user entity behavioral analytics hits a tremendous number of these MITRE attack techniques that you have here, and nothing compares to EDR. When we're looking at EDR can detect credentialed access, defensive evasion, privilege escalation, persistence, execution, initial access, pretty much everything. But being the fact that it does that, unfortunately, we have some organizations that like to come in with the idea that they don't need anything other than EDR. And we see this all of the time. We see this all the time in incident response engagements where we go into an environment, they're like, well, we're running CrowdStrike, and then they find out that CrowdStrike was not installed on everything. So let me give you a couple of examples. First example is we had a customer that was running Elastic. We run Elastic in our SIM. We're going to do a lab with Elastic here in just a little bit. But we had a customer that was running Elastic EDR, and they thought it had it installed everywhere. They weren't doing any type of network security monitoring. They weren't doing all of these different things. They got popped, and they got popped through an administrator's computer system who intentionally uninstalled the Elastic EDR because he didn't like the idea of being watched by other people. All right. So that's just crazy. Yeah, you can try to push it through GPO. I agree. That's awesome. But if they're an administrator, they can kind of get around that stuff, right? The other example that we had earlier this year was another organization that had their MSSP was not running an EDR, and their MSP who managed their not their routers, their firewalls, their routers, their switches, their desktops, their printers, and all that. They weren't running a good EDR, and when they connected into the customer's environment, it led to a compromise of a whole bunch of the customer systems. And because they were an MSP, they had administrative level privileges and they were able to execute a whole bunch of malware. This is also an organization that listed anything that was PS1 or PowerShell files. So when we're looking at all of this, you need to understand that there are blind spots. There are gaps that exist in organizations, and we have to be careful about those blind spots that exist in those organizations. So it's not enough to say, this is clearly the best defensive tool you have. We need to go a step further, and we need to say, look, we still need to have that network security monitoring. We need to have that filtering of going to the internet. We need to have all of those different techniques in play as well. All right. So this is what I've been talking about. This is overlapping fields of visibility. So whenever you're looking at anything in mathematics in a Venn diagram, anytime there is any like overlap in the Venn diagram on any of these different points, whether it's AV EDR, whether it's network security monitoring, whether it's a SIM, it's a multiplicative effect, right? So if you have two separate circles, it's just additive. If they overlap each other, then you get a multiplier on that. So if you can utilize your AV EDR, you can utilize your network security monitoring, you can utilize your SIM, and you can utilize your UEBA, and they're all watching that endpoint, then you get that overlap going on over the entire endpoint. And that becomes very powerful. Now, what also happens is, let's say that one of your administrators removes AV or EDR. Excellent. You still have NSM, you still have the SIM, you still have UEBA. You really kind of develop a very good, what we call defense in depth architecture, okay? So when we're talking about defense in depth, many organizations just kind of looked at that as the amount of money that they spend in their organizations insofar as the depth of the money. So they go and buy the most expensive products and they're like, well, we've got to spend defense in depth. We spent $1 million on computer security. Nope, that's not what it means. What are we going to do to overlap our security technologies to develop that defense in depth architecture as well? So we need to be looking at these things, and AV and EDR is just one of those components. Now, with this, you do have to be ready to pay. it is absolutely going to cost you money because traditional deny list AV is pretty much garbage. Like if they aren't doing full machine learning, if they aren't doing all of those different things, there is really not much you can do to defend your network with standard signature-based detection because the signatures of malware are evolving and changing so rapidly, it becomes super duper easy for the adversary to bypass those security technologies. So when you're now looking at these different vendors, when you're looking at CrowdStrike, you're looking at Carbon Black, you're looking at Endgame, you're looking at SentinelOne, there are absolutely bypass techniques for every single one of these vendors. But the caveat is many of the bypass techniques that we see in organizations are due to the configurations of these tools. Like I was talking about one of the environments that we were working in, they basically allow listed any of the PowerShell scripts in an organization to execute without exception. That is bad, right? That is absolutely horrific, but it allowed somebody to bypass. It doesn't matter what the vendor was, it doesn't matter how much money you spent on that vendor. If you're creating these exceptions and you're creating these rules that allow a security team to bypass them, it's pretty much game over at that point anyway. All of that being said, there are still bypass techniques. Many of these products hook into something called the anti-malware service from Microsoft, or AMSI, and you can bypass AMSI by downloading PowerShell from the Microsoft Store and executing the version of PowerShell that you execute off of the store. It's not hooked with AMSI. The other way is there's this great tool that we use. If somebody could throw a link up, it's called Seatbelt. Seatbelt goes through and it checks and like looks for bypasses of a number of different AV EDR products out there, and we use it for obfuscation techniques for post exploitation that's out there. So that we just ran against one of the vendors on the slide today, and it's working just fine out there. There it is, Ghost Pack Seatbelt. So yes, there are absolutely ways and bypass techniques and technologies that exist. Be aware of them. Now, once again, simply because a product has a bypass in it doesn't mean that product is garbage, all right? Many of the vendors that are up here get really super duper uncomfortable whenever I start talking about bypassing their product. Sometimes they get really bent out of shape and they want to sue me. Now, I'm going to give you an example of this. So we'll talk about BlackBerry Cylance. A number of years ago, I'm going to go Black Hills InfoSec. A number of years ago, Cylance was basically a bunch of trolls. They were spending a whole bunch of time threatening to sue their customers. So if a customer found a bypass technique or a security researcher found a bypass technique, they worked in the contract that there was kind of a gag clause. You weren't allowed to talk about Cylance and the bypass techniques or say anything critical about that particular product unless Cylance specifically said that you could do so. So if any of the vendors any of their customers or any of the security vendors that were out there said, hey, we got a way to bypass it, they would basically tell them, hey, you cannot go public with this or we're going to sue you. Now, I got super duper excited about this and I wanted Cylance to sue me. I was so excited about getting sued by Cylance for a number of reasons. The first reason why I was excited about getting sued by Cylance was because I would win. The second thing is, of course, publicity, right? So we really, really, really didn't like what Cylance was doing. So we started up a series of blogs. The first one, these were all done by David Fletcher, who was on a test in an environment that had Cylance out there. We bypassed Cylance just using custom malware that we created called VS Agent that was publicly available. Right? VS Agent, anyone could download it. We released this on Monday. And as soon as it got released on that Monday, they got really, really worked up, and a whole bunch of their MSPs and MSSPs and resellers got very, very uncomfortable. And I started getting phone calls from some of the resellers that Cylance was gearing up to sue me. And I said, that's fantastic. Here's my phone number. Here's my email address. Please tell them to get in contact with me, and be sure to tell them to watch out for the blog tomorrow. Because the next day's blog post was how to bypass Cylance using a tool called DNS Cat 2. Now, this was a while ago, everybody. This is 2017. So we bypassed the product with standard off the shelf malware on day one. We did the same thing on day two. And once again, there's a whole bunch of people that are freaking out. Cylance is starting to get calls from their customers, and they're telling their customers, yeah, whatever this company was doing, they basically weren't doing application blocking, basically allow listing of applications. And we said, nope, that was actually enabled on our customer's network. Here's the third day, us bypassing this tool, utilizing Netcat and Nishang ICMP C2 channel. We were able to bypass Cylance with raw Netcat. Does anyone know when Netcat came out? When did Netcat get released? Oh, yeah, it was 1995. The Windows version, I think, came out in 98. All right. Fantastic, right? Still very, very, very frustrated. Lots of people angry with what we're doing, and I'm fine with that. So we went to the next day where we basically bypassed it using Metasploit Meterpreter and PowerShell Empire Agent. So 4 days in a row, we bypassed their product and we did it publicly. Point is, don't piss me off if you're a vendor. So they had all of this stuff and it was very, very, very frustrating. And yet again, they were getting ready to sue me and they didn't. Does anybody know why they didn't sue me? There's a law in the United States, the customer, I think it's like the customer protection plan. I can't remember the exact law, but you cannot like give away your freedom of speech in a non-disclosure agreement to buy a product. You can't. I think it's the Electronic Communication Protection Act. See, I want you to think of it like this. Imagine every single time you bought a refrigerator or you bought a car or you bought a phone. And every time you bought that, it basically stated, I think it's the Electronic Communication Protection Act, if someone can look at that. And then they said that you're not allowed to talk about that. The Consumer Reports goes out the window, Amazon reviews go out the window, and it infringes on the freedom of speech. There was a case, not against CrowdStrike, but not against Cylance. I can't remember who it was against. Might have been CrowdStrike. And they basically were trying to sue AV reports because they didn't like what was written about them. And it went to a judge in Delaware, and the judge basically ruled and said, no, you cannot impinge on people's freedom of speech. So I use this as a way to communicate and kind of let you know that when we're talking about vendors and we're talking about EDR, there are two truths. The first truth is every single vendor has bypass techniques. Every single one of them has bypass techniques. They do. The other thing that is absolutely true is some of those vendors handle it better than others. Even with Cylance, the week after we did this, one of their C-O's did a video on YouTube and came out and said, I just want you all to know that last week there was rumors of bypasses for Cylance. Now, while we haven't confirmed these rumors, we believe that at Cylance, we focus on becoming the change we wish to see in the world. Yeah, they literally started freaking quoting Gandhi about this. So that's frustrating. Time went by. I would say it's about 8 months, and I received a very large box of beer from Cylance. It was an apology, and they wanted to have a meeting, and we sat down and we had to communicate, like really good bit of communication with them. And apparently a lot of the people in the marketing department that were trying to say Cylance wasn't bypassable, people that were trying to say that, 100% protection, they had been fired, and their engineers wanted to work closely with Black Hills Information Security to make their product better. And we did. So things do get better whenever we push back, right? CrowdStrike, I love the people at CrowdStrike. CrowdStrike is a little bit cooler than what Cylance did. CrowdStrike found one of our test instances. We set up fake companies. We buy CrowdStrike and then we test against CrowdStrike. And CrowdStrike found out what company we had created. And they basically allowed all of our malware to execute. They captured all of our malware and then they created signatures and sent it out to the rest of the world. That's awesome. Like, I'm not even mad about that. Like, that's just, I'm actually quite impressed. Just very, very, very cool. Like, and then the other thing that was funny is I was in Romania and one of their engineers in Romania was like, that didn't happen. We didn't do that. Then she came up to me after the conference. She's like, yeah, so I researched it. We totally did that to you. And I'm not, like I said, I'm not even mad, right? That's cool. So when you're looking at these products, you need to understand that they are light years better than any traditional AV. You need to understand that in many ways they are toilet paper. It's basically, whatever you have, going with it. Hey, just give me a second here. Oh, sorry. This is my Sorry, I had a phone call from Silence. No, I'm joking. We had another incident response thing with another vendor. I want to say it was about a month ago, where on half the systems it was stopping the execution of the malware, and on the other half of the systems it was like detected and then it let it run. So this stuff is all over the place. And like I said, I'm sorry. I usually don't do that, but when I have family call, I want to make sure that no one's, hi, Dad, I'm stuck on the side of the road in Cambodia. Help me. Because seriously, with my kids, I wouldn't be completely surprised about that. So Blue Spawn, an EDR stand-in. I think that we have a couple of labs that we're going to do here, and I want us to do a lab to kind of talk about how you, as a security team, can evaluate your security products. All right. So with Blue Spawn, it is a tool that emulates like what an EDR would do. And we're going to do the lab, the Atomic Red Team and Blue Spawn lab, where we're going to walk through how you would actually go through detecting what it is or the gaps that exist in your EDR. All right. So I've got my VM started up. Let's start it here. And let's go to GitHub. Uh-oh. Can someone give me the new GitHub link? It's probably in resources. Let's go there. When the moon hits your eye. Got it. Copy. Paste it in. There we go. So the lab that we're going to be doing is the Blue Spawn lab right here. It's actually called Atomic Red Team and Blue Spawn. This one takes a little while because we're going to install a new version of Atomic Red Team on your system. We're going to start out by disabling the antivirus on your system. Disable real-time monitoring, set that to true. And then if we're going to fire up Blue Spawn, we're going to open up a command prompt. We're going to CD into the intro labs. We're going to start up Blue Spawn. Now, these numbers have changed in the new version of MITRE. So I'll give you a link a little bit lower on that could show you where the cross mappings are for these different techniques that are out there. Then you're going to CD into the top level directory, and then we're going to run this command right here, which is going to update the Atomic Red Team installation on your system. Then you're going to CD into the Atomic Red Team, invoke Atomic Red Team directory. You're going to install the module PowerShell YAML. You're going to import the Atomic Red Team PowerShell module, and then we're going to fire off some individual tests down below. And you're going to see these tests fire. You may get some red errors, you may get some green things, but then you're going to cross-reference it back over to the Blue Spawn tool. So this is literally what we do in our security operations center, where we make sure that our rules are working in our EDR. We're making sure that our rules are firing properly in our SIM on the other side as well. By the way, if you want to see the crosswalk of the technique numbers, I provided the JSON for the old numbers and the new numbers down below, so you can see those as well. Now, you can clean up after yourselves and evoke atomic tests, all cleanup. And then at the end, you can go through the instructions for AppLocker or Sysmon to exploit your system, get a interpreter prompt, and then you can run a keystroke logger. And then you can run a shell and you can do registry persistence modifications on your system. You can run get system and you can see if Blue Spawn has the ability to detect that. Now, at the end of this lab, I'm going to ask you again to please destroy your lab environment and then recreate it, because we're doing all kinds of horrible bad things to this VM, and there's just no coming back from this. So we're not going to try to save the system. So nuke it from high orbit, because it's the only way to be sure. All right, so with that, let's go ahead and let's get rolling. This lab is going to take us up to and through the break. So we're going to have up until the top of the hour. We're going to resume at 10 after. So we're going to start back up at 10 after, everybody. Get rolling, and then I'll start the walkthrough. All right. We are backish. There we go. We're ready to go. Let's go ahead and let's do this lab. Let me move that off, close that. Do those things. All right. So we're going to start out by disabling the antivirus, which once again, the goal of this lab is not to bypass AV. We're really just kind of showing you how we can test and evaluate our AV product. So how do those two things reconcile each other, right? I mean, I'm saying we're not trying to bypass AV, but at the same time, I'm saying we're evaluating AV. Well, what you do is you set up your AV or EDR into alerting non-blocking mode, which means it's going to run and it's going to tell you what it would have done. So that's kind of what we're going to be doing with Blue Spawn, because Blue Spawn is doing that as an informational, it's doing that as an informational cursory level monitoring on your system. So let me go ahead and copy this. We're going to paste that in like that. So it's now disabled, which is awesome. Then we're going to open up a command prompt on this system. Go over here, open up command prompt. And we are going to CD into the intro labs directory. Go ahead and copy that. Copy. There we go. And then we're going to fire up Blue Spawn. So it's just doing monitoring. It's not actually stopping any of the attacks from running on the system. And this is one of the reasons why we talk about this lab in terms of it is not a lab you should look at as we're going to run Blue Spawn every single day, and it's going to be the product that you run. It is literally just a tool that you can run in a lab such as this one to be able to do this type of proof and validation testing on your EDR product that's out there. I'm in the wrong chat in Discord. There we go. There we go. Boy, there's a lot going on. There we go. All right. So we now have that set up and configured. So Blue Spawn, I'm just going to move it over here because we're going to do bad things to the system here in a moment. And I want to show Blue Spawn doing its thing. I'm going to CD into the top level directory on this system. And then we're going to install the up-to-date version of Atomic Red Team. Right. Oops. So right-click, copy, paste. Takes a few moments for it to download and extract all of the components for Atomic Red Team. But when it's done, you've got this really super cool environment that is like you can fully do testing against the MITRE ATT&CK technique matrix. So if you're looking at the MITRE ATT&CK techniques matrix, so let's do that again. Let's do MITRE ATT&CK framework. There we go. You can see all of those different attacks are represented here. And each of them are represented with a number, right? So if I were to go into account manipulation, it's going to give me, what are the sub techniques associated with account manipulation. So we have 98 and then 001, 98002, 98003, 004, where you have additional cloud credentials, email delegate permissions, SSH authorized keys. And then you can click on any of those and it gives you a little bit more information of procedures. And then it also gives you the mitigations to basically stop this and then the detects for it as well. So we got a question. What is Atomic Red Team? A piece of software that acts like a bad actor. That's it. We actually refer to it as threat simulation software. So it's going to simulate what are all the different things that an evil adversary can do in your environment. So, all right. So we've got it installed. I'm going to CD into the Evoke Atomic Red Team directory. Here we go. And then we're going to install the PowerShell YAML module, yet another markup language. There we go. And then we're going to import the PowerShell module for Atomic Red Team. Now, this is the actual kind of heart of Invoke Atomic Red Team. Like this is literally the tool that invokes the individual atomics that are available. So we've now got that loaded and now we're ready to do some stuff. So the first one I'm going to do is I'm going to invoke atomic test and we're going to try the test T1547 and we're going to try the fourth subcategory. Let's watch what happens to blue spawn when I execute this. There we go. So you can see that this one cross maps to T1004. So sure enough, we were able to detect these techniques. And the other thing that's really, really cool is they were able to detect these techniques with multiple different detects. Now, this gets into kind of a weird thing where sometimes you have your tool say, I saw group policy modification, but zero detections. What that means is it noticed that group policy was in fact modified. It saw that. But none of the modifications match the actual signature or pattern of the actual attacks. And that's useful, right? That's useful. A large orangutan has asked me, sorry, is it much different than breach and attack or adversarial simulation tool? No, Atomic Red Team is just that thing. It's doing adversarial simulation. So we tested one of them. Let's go ahead and test another one. See if Atomic Red Team triggers anything with the blue spawn kind of setup EDR. There we go. Here it goes. And that one didn't trigger anything, right? So now I know that there is some little gap in my detection coverage for blue spawn. So Atomic Red Team, super awesome for doing all of these different checks. Right? But that isn't the only thing that we can do. We can actually do a little bit more. So one of the other things, oh, schnizzle, hold on. Never mind the man behind the curtain. Let me rerun blue spawn since I killed it. Let's say that you run into a situation where there is not a actual Atomic Red Team technique for that. All right. If you run into that situation, we can actually do kind of bespoke adversarial emulation, and we can do that utilizing the Metasploit framework, right? So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to change my settings. I'm going to make the appearance. We're going to give this a nice big font. I like big fonts and I cannot lie. There we go. There we go. Got it. Apply that. There we go. I'm going to have to open up another command prompt here. So let's go ahead and open up another one. There we go. And it says go to the like the app locker or the at the bottom. It says go to the app locker or the Sysmon lab to generate the actual attack to actually get Meterpreter running. So I'm going to go ahead and I am going to go to app locker. We've already disabled antivirus. I'm going to go ahead and disable the firewall on this system. And you saw that that actually triggered right here. You can see it saw disable security tools, this T1089. Just by disabling the firewall, we were able to detect that, which I think is kind of cool. Then we're going to change the administrator password with net user. There we go. And then we're going to go into intro labs. I got to get the IP address of my Windows system, like so. And then I'm going to get the IP address of my Linux computer. There we go. And then we're going to go through the instructions to actually get the malware to execute on my Windows system. Now, the goal is not actually, once again, detecting the malware, but what happens post-exploitation with that malware. So if we start a keystroke logger, if we make registry key changes, things of that nature. So I'm going to get my IP address for my Windows computer. I have that over here. We're going to put in 10.10.93.75. We're going to create our malware, or sorry, we're going to create our share. There we go. So we cd into mount, Windows share, type ls. Sure enough, that's working really good. Now we've got to create the malware using MSF Venom. Once again, we're going to have to change that that IP address so it matches our Linux IP address. So go ahead and delete that variable. You know, 10.10. What is that? 107.246, 107.246, like so. Now it's going to generate that malware. I'm going to make sure I got the right 107.246. That looks good. Takes a few minutes for this to generate the malware, and I'm an impatient human being. So I'm going to open up another Kali terminal, and we're going to get MSF console ready to go. So we're going to change our settings, change our appearance, change our font. There we go. And we're going to become root, and we're going to fire up MSF console. Quiet, because I don't want to see that banner. But I should have that malware has been created. There we go. Looking good. Looking good. I need to get my Blue Spawn instance up and running here. And then once we get that malware created and copied over and we've got MSF console, we're going to need to execute it, right? So MFS console is still doing its jam. The malware is created and over there, so that's good. All right, just waiting for it. Other great songs. You know, waiting by the phone. All right. Now we're going to use the exploit multi-handler. And we are going to use the Meterpreter reverse TCP payload. And then we're going to set the L host to be our Linux IP address. We're going to exploit. And then we go back over to our Windows computer system and we execute trustme.exe. There we go. Now we got a Meterpreter session. So now we can do this bespoke sort of adversarial emulation, simulation that I was talking about. That's a lot of work to get to that point, but we can start doing some really cool things. The first thing we can do is key scan start. This is where we're firing up a keystroke logger, and we're going to see can Atomic Blue Team, or sorry, can Blue Spawn detect us running a keystroke logger? So let's go ahead and do this. I'm going to do Notepad. This is my password. Grant me access. There we go. And then we're going to do keyscan underscore dump. There you go. Keystroke logger works, and we didn't get a single hit on Blue Spawn. Not one. Then we're going to convert this to a shell. And we are going to run some registry keys, and we're going to see if Blue Spawn can detect that. Got nothing. And we will try a second registry key. There we go, and it detected that one. All right. So once again, the goal of this is to try to identify where are the gaps in our coverage with our EDR, right? And with this very, very simplistic sort of, basic EDR proof of concept Blue Spawn, we've already found a couple of different gaps, right? Like the first gap being we don't have, we don't have the ability to detect keystroke logging. We also missed one of the registry key settings. So then we would go through and do some tuning and maybe creating some additional signatures for our EDR to be able to detect those types of attacks and that methodology. So I'm going to close out my VM and I am going to destroy that lab because we did so many bad things to that lab. We should feel super dirty about everything we did to that computer. Once that is done, destroying it, then we're going to start the lab, and it takes a few moments for it to destroy the lab, but we're going to start up the new lab for the next part of the labs that are coming up here in just a couple of seconds. All right, so as I mentioned, BlueSpawn is not a tool that you would run in production. As far as like a super cool university project that they set up for a CCDC competition, nothing but mad props for the students. Really, really good tool for open source. Now, there are other tools we could have used like Waza, but the problem with Waza is it requires a little bit more setup and a little bit more infrastructure for it to actually detect and for it to actually work as well. So what we just did is threat simulation or threat emulation, right? Don't just think as vulnerabilities as missing patches. We're looking at all the post-exploitation things that are made up in the MITRE attack technique matrix that so many organizations actually miss, right? It's not just misconfigurations. It's not just missing patches. And there's lots of tools other than Atomic Red Team, right? Like you could run Caldera. Caldera is a tool that is put out by MITRE, and it is designed for testing the MITRE attack technique matrix and coming back and telling you which of the different techniques it was able to successfully execute on your systems. The one that we did was Atomic Red Team, and we have a very soft spot in our heart for Atomic Red Team. We use modified versions of it for our behavioral adversarial simulation that we do at Black Hills Information Security for our Security Operations Center. The other thing that's really cool about Atomic Red Team is you can actually look at the details for each one of the little things that you do, right? Like this one goes through and it'll tell you exactly what's going to happen. It's going to open up calc.exe. It's going to tell you exactly what are the commands that it's going to execute, what the command is with the inputs, what are the discrepancies, all of these different things, right? This is powerful because if it doesn't work, it gives you the ability to go through and try to modify it just a little bit so it's a little bit easier to make this detect work. And that is something that we do work with. The other thing that's really cool about gaining access to all of these different components in the Atomic Red Team for the atomics that it's running is it helps you write signatures. So if we were to run an atomic test and we didn't get an alert on it, we can look at something like this and we can say, well, this thing runs regserve. It runs it with the flags /s/u, and it's invoking script obj.dll. So we can write a signature of regserve32, those flags, and the script object.dll. Now we can actually start focusing on writing things for detection and tuning that in your environment as well. Now, one of the questions I want to ask, just kind of stop for just a second. How many of you feel comfortable running the tools like Atomic Red Team? Based on we just had a lab a little while ago, is that kind of a scary thing? No, shouldn't be. Shouldn't be. I'm going to start the lab up. By the way, everybody, I have discovered that if you go into your VM, like if you copy the command and you go into the VM and you click in your terminal with like a standard left click and then try to right click, it doesn't work. If you go right into your terminal and do right click or two-fingered click, it taps in your command that you copied. All right. So if you go in and click it first and then try to paste it, doesn't work. So you're going to copy, going to go right into the VM, and instead of like clicking, then right clicking, you're going to go right click, paste it immediately. All right. Okay. So yeah, you shouldn't be scared of these particular tools. A lot of organizations get really worked up because they believe rather mistakenly that if they run these tools, it's automatically going to, take over their entire environment and, burn everything to the ground. There's other tools that you can run for adversarial emulation. You don't have to just use Atomic Red Team or Caldera. You can also look at other tools out there. Prelude Operator has a free version that you can run. Really like this tool. It also integrates with some big name EDRs out there as well. So it'll do a number of different tests. It'll tell you how many endpoints it tested, and then it'll tell you whether or not you were able to detect that in something like CrowdStrike, SentinelOne, and Microsoft Defender. That's just really cool. Bloodhound sounds dangerous. It is very, very, very noisy, but we use it all the time, and very rarely does it ever create any issues. It's one of our most heavily used tools post-exploitation as well. So I don't know if anybody has had similar experiences with Bloodhound, but it tends to be very stable and work very well. So threat emulation warning, one of the traps of the MITRE framework is that we get into writing signatures that are too specific. So if I go back to this one, I have seen organizations that have written a signature for regserve32 executing out of the atomic red team directory, atomics 117. That's not how this works. That's not how any of this works. Don't do it that way, right? They're representations of different classes of attacks. We need to stay back just a little bit and see how can we actually detect this if there's obfuscation being used? How can we detect this if it's executing from a completely different directory and things like that as well? There are commercial offerings. There's Scythe, Attack IQ, XM Cyber. Some other people have had some examples of some tools that they have used as well. If you have any other adversarial emulation tools that you like, please share it with everybody as well. We already did this lab back there. All right, so that's going to bring us to the next lab that's going to take us up to and through the break. We are going to do the lab Velociraptor right here. All right. So this one's up above, it's Velociraptor. This is very similar to an EDR, and we're going to talk about it from the perspective of doing, wide scale incident response. Your EDR should have this capability, and it should be easy to work with. So once again, this lab is going to take us up to and through the break, 10 minutes on the other side. So let's set the timer for 40 minutes. So we got a 10-minute break and a 30-minute lab. Let's get rolling.
Test. Can anybody hear me? All right. All right, cool. Ryan, I'm going to share my screen. Can you make sure that works if you're here? Please. Please. So I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to share this one, and I'm going to share this. Okay. Can everybody see LinkedIn? Yeah. All right. Cool. All right. Hello, everybody. So for the next couple of minutes, I'm going to do some job hunting things. So what I'd like you to do is put in a job title that you're currently hunting for into the chat. So if you have a job that you're currently hunting for in the chat, in life, go ahead and put in the chat. SOC analyst, GRC, SOC security engineer, red team LMs. Nice. SOC analyst. All right. Junior SOC analyst. All right. Let's do SOC analyst just to get started. This works for anybody, but let's go ahead and start with SOC analyst. All right. So the two things we're going to cover here today is how to build a resume and why would you want to in the first place. So let's go ahead and do that. I don't know about you, but the idea of a resume is terrifying because not only does it have to describe who you are, but it actually has to describe who you are in a way that helps you get paid and make money and feed yourself and your family and have a future. So trying to put the words in place in a way that gets you the job sometimes is overwhelming and daunting, and you think you did it wrong the whole time. I don't know anyone who's ever said like, my resume is great. They're always like, is it good? And I was like, I don't know. You got to show me the job description. All right. So the way this is going to work today is instead of trying to sit down to a blank sheet of paper like I have right in front of me and try to figure out who you are and like write down who you are, what I recommend you do is a couple things. So first thing is I like to do SOC analyst, and then I like to click on people. I like to click on people because I like to see how other SOC analysts have talked about themselves. And then another thing, if you didn't know you could do this, like actually look up SOC analysts where you live. And so let's say I live in Baltimore. I can look up SOC analysts in the Baltimore area. And then when I look up SOC analysts in the Baltimore area, I can see companies like Lulubyte IT Consultants, Think Tank, Down here we have, if I go through Lumen Technologies, Delta Hash Consulting, and some other at Expel. So one of the things that you can start doing is figuring out, where do SOC analysts work? So you can start compiling a list of all the SOC analyst jobs and companies that can actually have SOC analysts. And so you can start to put essentially a hit list together, not like hit list, but a hit list together of companies that you can reach out to and see if you can actually find work at those companies. So that is one thing you can do. You can also click on Catherine here, who is a SOC analyst in Laurel, and you can read what she wrote about herself. It says, I'm a SOC analyst with experience in network, right? And then you go down here and like, well, is there anything that she's doing that I could also do that I think is relevant or interesting to myself? So you go through here and you take a look at what other people are writing about themselves and see, is there anything that you find interesting or useful for you? So far, I have found nothing. I found nothing of usefulness for myself. And oh, here we go. This is one of my favorite things that people are recently doing, is where they're taking their PDF of their actual resume and they're putting it as a featured item inside their LinkedIn profile. If you don't know how to do that, if you go back over to your own LinkedIn and you say enhance profile or add profile section, you can go in here and say, I want to add recommended or featured, add featured, right? And so you can then put that PDF of your resume into that section right there. So let's go back over here to SOC analyst, right? So I'm doing a search for SOC analyst in my own area to see what companies are interesting, where I might be able to find a job, and then start looking at some of their profiles to see, are you doing something that I find interesting that I could potentially copy for myself, right? Humans are not very good at like original ideas. What we're really good at is finding someone else's idea and then modifying their idea to get that better. So you don't have to sit here and reinvent the wheel. Literally, they say you do not have to reinvent the wheel. You can make the wheel better, but why would you make a brand new wheel? All right, so back over here to a blank document, and you're like, blank document. I hate blank document. This is the worst. How could I ever figure out how to talk about myself? You either fall into two categories of the kind of person when it comes to building a resume. Either one, you don't think anything you did was very relevant or worthy of talking about, or you're like, everyone knows what a SOC analyst does, so why even put anything, right? So like either fall into like, I didn't really do anything that I should talk about, or everybody knows what a SOC analyst does, so I should just put SOC analyst and everyone will know what I did as a SOC analyst, or I didn't really do anything when I worked there. All right, so back over here to SOC analyst, and then we click on jobs. All right. So we go to click on jobs. All right. Do me a favor. Never, ever, 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 ever click on the experience level on a website such as LinkedIn, Indoor, Glassdoor, or Indeed. Don't click on the experience level. It will only lead to sadness, misery, and your own self-destruction. So instead of doing that, one of the things you can do is go over here to say minus SR and minus senior. And what that will do is most likely get rid of all the senior level roles inside of your search. Now, you can do a search for all of the United States. You can also do a search for your own home country. You can do a search for a lot of other things. Now, if you're like, but Jason, you put in minus senior and it's still right there. Well, promoted posts aren't treated the same as all the other posts. And so once you get past all the promoted posts, you actually get down to the actual jobs that are not promoted. There's nothing wrong with a promoted post. In fact, a lot of times those companies need to hire someone quickly and fastly. And so that's not a real word. But if we go over here, eventually we'll get past all these promoted posts. No, not right now. Like there's a lot of companies out there currently looking, they're promoting the posts. And one of the reasons why is, well, it's free marketing. And two, it's a way for them to fill contracts that currently need to be filled. All right. So that is one of the ways to do promoted post and why they're promoted in the first place. And eventually one day I'll get past all the promoted posts and to another place. Let's just go ahead and do the thing I wanted to do. All right. So when you come across all these different posts here, like information security analyst, and we get down here to, nope. We get down here to this where it says conduct regular security assessments and audits of information systems. If that's true about you, then just take that, go over here to your blank document, and then paste it. Like just paste it, right? Like that's something that's true about you. Monitor network traffic with suspicious activity and respond to potential threats. Yeah, that sounds right. And then you paste this as well. So what you're doing is you're going through all the job descriptions that you can find that are similar to the role that you're looking for. We go down here to cyberspace defense analyst. You click through here and it says coordinating network defense operations with DoD. You're like, I do not know how to do that. So you go over here to the senior IT analyst and you look for, is there any ones down here? No. Oh, by the way, are you the kind of person that when you find a job description, all right, so let's say you find a job description and you read through the job description and all of a sudden you find the one thing that you can't do, and all of a sudden you're like, wah, wah, wah. Looks like I can't do that job. So it's not about the one you can't do, it's about the 9 out of 10 you can do. And so if you are currently in that mindset, and unfortunately it is a mindset, like when you get laid off, you can't find work, it's been a while, you're doing everything you possibly can to find a job, and all of a sudden, like the self-doubt is like crippling, and the lack of self-confidence is crippling, and all of a sudden you're like, I guess they don't want someone like me because I can't do that one thing in the bullet points, right? So do me a favor, go find some people who like you, and then let them tell you all the things that they like about you, and then go, you know what? I'm worthy of all that love. Okay, cool. And then get back to job hunting. All right, so we get over here. It says works closely with cybersecurity leadership's legal and key business stakeholders, coordinate on mapping, like contribute to. Here's the thing about this, right? Like if you ask me or ask a SOC analyst, like, what do you do all day? And it's like, I contribute to the creation of and maintenance of policies and standards to support data privacy and security requirements. I would never think of that, and you would never think of that. And so, since we never think of that, then just go find a thing that says what you do, copy that, and go like, let me go ahead and put that over here. All right. So what happens is after you do this for like 2 hours, and I do recommend you do it for 2 hours, you set like a timer, right? You set a timer and say for the next 2 hours, I'm going to harvest every single bullet point I can possibly find through all these different job descriptions. Here's what happens at the end of it. You have a list of things that you're capable of, and all of a sudden, you don't need that person who says all those nice things about you, because you look at your list and you go like, oh, look at all the stuff I can do. Look at all the stuff I can do. Now, there are a few of you right here. It's like, but I've never had a job before, Jason. I'm getting ready to graduate, or I'm new to this industry. What do I have? And I'm like, well, cool. Thanks for asking. What you can do is, let's say you took training. Let's say you have the CompTIA Security Plus, okay? And you go over here to CompTIA Security Plus, and as you scroll through here, they're like, yeah, you got to do all this stuff, and you got to accept the cookies, cool, and like reviews, right? So if you go over here to the Cert Master Practices, I don't know what I actually clicked on. There we go. Learn more about certification. Okay. So we get over here. It says about the exam, assess the security posture of an enterprise, monitor the secure, operate, identify and analyze. What skills will you learn? Okay, so take the inverse property of this. If it says what skills you will learn, then you can say, I learned these skills. And so you can take any certification that you currently have. And I'm not saying you have to have certifications. What I'm saying is you can take any skills, any knowledge, any class that you've taken. And most likely that class says students will learn. And if it says students will learn, then you can say, look at what I learned. And so you go through here and you're like, well, general security concepts, you're like, includes key cybersecurity terminology, focus on responding to common threats, includes security implications. Like you can take this and say, I know how to do these things in a theoretical environment. And so if you were to hire me, I would have knowledge of these things and be able to do these things once you did hire me, right? So if you're sitting here going, but I don't have skills, I haven't been doing this job. Yes, you haven't been doing the job, but you do have basic knowledge of skills, and you can then highlight those onto this document over here of all your skills and abilities in one place. And lastly, take the best bullet points from this and then go back to your own LinkedIn profile. Go back to your own LinkedIn profile. Go to where it's applicable, right down here to show all experiences. I used to work for another training organization way back in the day. And so I took, you know what you could do too? You could actually find the job description of the job you currently have and find the old job description, and it's got a whole bunch of bullet points that says you will do in this job. You can just take those bullet points and then say, I did those things in that job. And so I had this job, and so I took all these different things that I did, I put it in the proper tense, and I said I did it. And so you just go ahead and put it into your LinkedIn profile, put it in your LinkedIn profile, put it in your LinkedIn profile. And what that does is when somebody's searching for you in the future, right, they do a SOC analyst position, because that's how recruiters use LinkedIn. They use it way different than you. They use SOC analyst people, and then they say, I'm looking for second connections, people they're connected to. I'm looking for people who are currently working at, let's say, government, right? Like, I don't know, is that the government of the United States, or we go over here to federal government? Yeah, let's say they work at the FBI. Okay. So here's the 5 people who work at the FBI that are on LinkedIn. So that's how recruiters use it. They use keywords from your profile to be able to find you when they're trying to fill positions for a SOC analyst job. And they're trying to find either you work someplace or you have those skills and abilities. And with that, John.
So, Jason, did you cover how to do job search for technology stack at a company yet?
I didn't know.
Oh, okay. So Jason focused on how you can make your resume match the job posting of the organization that you want to go to. And I think that that's absolutely essential, right? So if you want to go work at X, Y, and Z, make your resume match the job that you're trying to go to. But one of the things that we've been talking about in my classes for the past couple of years is you can actually go deeper, because a lot of the job postings that are out there, they're garbage, right? So if they looking for an intro level security person, right? And it's like the following skills: Excel spreadsheet, basic security knowledges and practices. Like, it's almost impossible to take that really, really basic job posting and tie it into something that you can kind of focus and hone your resume on. So I just shared my screen. Hopefully you all can see it here in just a couple of seconds. I want to show you how to kind of take what Jason was talking about, do some additional recon to get your resume so it pops with the target organization. So I started with jobs looking for a CISSP. I do like CISSP jobs because it's a relatively low barrier to entry. Anybody that's been doing anything with computers for X number of years can get a CISSP. You just got to study for it. It's affordable. It's a nice entry level certification insofar as how that goes. So I'm going to try to find companies that are in the Denver metro area that are kind of interesting in the respects of like what I'm looking for in that area. So I see that I've got Denver Health. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put in Denver Health. I'm going to replace the CISSP, and I'm going to replace it with Denver Health. And then these are all of the jobs that Denver Health has. All right. So what we want to do is we want to look at these other jobs that are not the security job that I'm trying to get, so we can harvest the technology stack that they're using at Denver Health. All right. So it's kind of going one step further. It's not just cloning your resume to the job posting, which is essential, but you're going to go a little bit further and you're going to do more profiling of what is the technology stack that Denver Health is using. So we've got, let's not do a scheduler. Let's do, not a research associate. Here we go. Administrator applications. This is perfect, right? So it's giving us like, what are the applications that they have? Now, sometimes they're really good and they'll give you the actual like applications that they're running, like RPM DS information services. I don't even know, but you can see the level of effort they put into creating this job posting. How with RMPDS information SVC, what the hell is that, right? They just didn't put a lot of effort into this as well. So they're going through problem solving. I'm looking for specific technologies, right? And right now, I'm not getting a lot of the actual technologies, even in the licenses, software and hardware requirements, and variety of different departmental services, demonstrating the ability, regular salary. They got an eco pass. I'm still not seeing technology in this one. I'm not done yet. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to give up that easily, but I'm going to go through and I'm going to look at all of the different projects and jobs that they have, and I'm going to try to find any IT related things that they have. Well, it turns out that Denver Health has nothing. So if I'm looking at Indeed, I want to get a job there. I can match my resume to match what they have, but you can see that they're giving me absolute garbage to go off of. Like if you're looking at just the CISSP with Denver Health, like the administrator of applications, nothing. I've got nothing here. And this is a job. They allow me to work remotely. I can go right off the train station. It's between $86,000, $130,000 a year. This looks like the job I want, but I'm not done. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to the Denver Health website, right? We're going to go to Denver Health, and I'm going to take this denverhealth.org right here, and I'm going to go to a website called Built With. And what Built With is going to do is it's going to tell me what is the technology that Denver Health is using. So I know that they're using Google Optimize, they're using Google Analytics, they got QuantCast measurements, Google Site Tags, Bing Universal Event Tracking. But then I get down here and I'm starting to get some of the technology that they're building with it. Like right here, I can see that they're using Cloudflare. So right there, if I'm trying to get a security job at Denver Health, I'm now going to do some research on Cloudflare, like what are the configurations? I'm maybe going to watch some YouTube videos, and I'm going to add that into my resume, as Jason said, something saying, I am familiar with Cloudflare technologies, right? Don't say you're an expert. Don't say you have tons and tons and tons of experience, but if you've seen some YouTube videos, how you can do Cloudflare administration, you're doing good. Now we have ASP.NET. We're starting to see some technologies, right, that we have here. Now I can take these technologies, all right? We can see that they're using Sitecore CMS. We can see that they're using jQuery. I'm now starting to get some cool technologies that they're using. And now I can jump over to the Center for Internet Security Hardening Guides. So I know that they use ASP.NET, right? So with this, I can now go to specific categories and I can see like what are the technologies that they're using. And I can download a guide on how to harden that because they seem to be using a lot of Google Cloud Compute. So I can do some research on Google Cloud Computing platform. You can actually download the guide and go through, read it, get familiar with it, watch some videos on it. What are some other things we can do? Let's do the next best thing. All right. So we got denverhealth.org. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this. I'm going to go copy. I'm going to go back to Google. We're going to do site : and we have all of these different sites that are www. I know what www is. It's not giving me any information about the rest of the makeup of the environment. Now I'm going to remove anything that's www, which is kind of crazy. Let me clear this up just a little bit. Here we go. Here we go. Now I'm going to remove the wwws because I know what that is. And now I've got TT auth. So what is TT auth? So if we go to this privacy error, already I can tell that they have some security issues that we've got to deal with, but I don't know what TT auth is. What do we got here? Says something to do with opioids, apparently. I don't know. Has an admin page. I don't know what that technology is. I could save that one for later. But now I'm going to take and minus out TT auth like that. We know that they're using IIS Windows Server. So now I can go to CIS and I can download Microsoft IIS and I can get the benchmark guide for Microsoft IIS. So let's go ahead and do minus IIS, or what is it? Scheduling. Like that. I know what my chart is. It's just an app that they use. Don't care about that. They're using Citrix right here. Check this out. So right here, Denver Health Training, denverhealth.org. Excellent. Now I can do a search on how to harden Citrix, which I don't have a guide for that, but I can do a search, hardening, Citrix hardening. I can do that. And we have tech papers on how to harden Citrix. All right. So I'm going to keep going. So let's minus out training like that. We've got Epic Care. I know that they're using Epic. So now I can do a search on. Now I can do a search on Epic Health hardening guide. I'm almost done. Actually, that's it. That's the last one. All right. So now whenever I'm tailoring my resume, right, I'm going to tailor my resume to Google, right? I'm going to tailor my resume to Epic Health. I'm going to tailor my resume for what else did we find? Citrix was another one that we found. I'm going to tailor my resume for IIS. So now when they're looking for resumes from that absolute god-awful garbage of a job posting that doesn't give us any technology stack that they're using whatsoever, we're going to find out what their technology stack is. We're going to become familiar with those hardening guides. And just like Jason said, you're not going to say you're an expert. You're not going to say that you've used it for years. You're going to say that you are familiar with these technologies. And somebody that gets your resume and they work at Denver Health, they're like, this person's familiar with Citrix. They're familiar with CloudFront. They're familiar with IIS. They're familiar with all of these technologies. I guarantee you go into that interview, and if you can answer these questions, basic questions about those technology stacks, your resume is going straight to the tippy top. All right. To give you an example of how I do things or did things with IONS, IONS was expert decision support. I would get calls from IONS and I would come in as an expert and I would literally RTFM like an hour before my expert decision support call, and they would be blown away. They'd be like, oh my God, I didn't know that they had that capability in Palo Alto. How did you find that? It was literally on page 42 of the user guide. Right? So you get better at doing this over time, and it'll really make your resume pop. And even if you say, as part of this job, like coming in for this interview, I researched all the technology that you have. I downloaded the CIS guides. I downloaded the hardening guides for Citrix. I downloaded the hardening guides and learned how to deal with CloudFront. You won't believe just how much that resonates with employers because it shows that you have initiative. It shows that you have the ability to dig. It shows that you have the ability to learn and really truly dig in the environment. And all of those things scream green flags, hire this person. All right. How's that? All right. Jason, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Big round of applause for Jason, everybody. See ya. All righty. So we did a lab. Yes, we did. Yes, we did. Yes, we did. I've got my lab started. I'm going to go into my intro labs remastered, and we're going to walk through Velociraptor here before we get into the other slides. Now, Velociraptor, as I said, from an EDR perspective, is an absolutely just fantastic tool that, oops, go to. There we go. Let me go back. Make it bigger. There we go. It is an absolutely fantastic tool that emulates what an EDR should do beyond just simply stopping the execution of malware in an environment. It shows how we can actually query our environment and all the systems in our environment in such a way that we can get answers across multiple different systems. So I'm going to CD into Intro Labs. And then I'm going to generate the core configuration for Velociraptor. One of the reasons why we use Velociraptor in this class is it is a very lightweight executable, and we can use it for the server and for the client. So I'm going to generate this configuration for Velociraptor, and I'm just going to keep most of the default settings for Velociraptor. Let me go ahead and close this one. I don't want that one anymore. I should clean up. Let me clean up some stuff here real quick. There we go. It's going to be for Windows. There we go. Going to just keep the default self-signed SSL certificate, DNS, local host. It's going to listen on port 8000. We're just going to keep the defaults. Just going to go through a bunch of the defaults. We're going to leave the GUI username for authorization empty. We're going to create that user account here in a bit. Just going to just keep the defaults that we have here. It generates the server and the client config for us. Awesome. All right, so we've got all of that configured. Now what we're going to do is we're going to add a user to the server, right? We're going to add a user as the local admin. So the user is root, and I'm going to put in Tor as my password. There we go. So we've added in the user. Then we're going to run the MSI, and this is just going to install all the appropriate Velociraptor sections to the right place on the disk in the program files directory. Then we're going to surf to the Velociraptor GUI, make sure that the server is absolutely running. I haven't started it yet. Hold on. We're going to start the server, and then we're going to surf to it. Ooh. My copy and paste did not work that time. Like I said, it's a weird little bug, but if you click and then open or try to click and then paste, it doesn't seem to work. You have to right click right into it and then it pastes it. And there, I just messed up. There we go. We get the little error. Fine. We know that it's a self-signed cert. I'm going to put in root and Tor. And we're going to see the actual server start up here. Now, we don't have any clients configured to connect into the server yet at this point. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to open up another command prompt, and we're going to have the client connect in. So we're going to go ahead and just open up another command prompt. There we go. We're going to CD into Intro Labs. We're going to run that MSI. Again for the client. And then we're going to start the client, but we're going to put in the client config.yaml. And that's going to give all the information that's required for that client server to connect in to this server, right? There we go. And you're going to see it make a connection over to the server. You can see them starting to talk to each other like two information security Furbies, just chatting back and forth, just having little chitter chatter talks. Let me get some coffee here. All right. So we've got that. Now I can go home and I can see that I have some clients that are connected. And I can drop down and I can do show all. And now I can see my client Windows server is connected right here. All right. So we're just running this against a single system. We're not running this against dozens or hundreds of computer systems, but the same concepts apply. You can run these different commands where you can run queries against all of them. You can run it against individual computer systems, and you can run shell commands and get data off of those systems. This is so essential when you're working an incident to be able to see and ask a question across multiple different systems. So I'm going to show you two different ways to be able to do that query across multiple systems. The first one is we're just going to run a shell. I'm going to execute just a straight cmd.exe, and I'm going to do task list /m. I want to dump all the dynamic link libraries that are current. Let's do /m and let's do nt dll.dll. I want to see every single executable that's using that specific dynamic link library. I think maybe that dynamic link library is a bit suspicious. So I can click launch. It's going to execute. It takes a few seconds for it to run, and then it's going to pull those results back in here. So now I can see every single dynamic link library that is invoked on each of those computers. Now this is cool, and that's fine, but what if we want something that's in like a CSV file? If we want something that's in a CSV file that has all of the like host names and all the processes and all those things in one file, we can do a hunt. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new hunt. I'm just going to call it class. I'm going to select the artifacts. So with artifacts, what do we have? Or if I have any artifacts that are interesting to me. I don't want Linux. We got to be on a Windows system. What we got here? Oh my God, there's so many here. Let's pull the prefetch file. Why not? Configure the parameters, specify the resources, review, and then launch. So prefetch is just this wonderful little utility on Windows where you can get execution of different processes. I don't know which one we looked at in the lab itself. What do we do for a hunt on this one? Set the hunt, select artifacts. They did generic system PS tray, and that's showing the process execution. And we are going to run it. Yes, go ahead and execute it, and we're off to the races. Okay. And we're going to try something a bit different after this. We're going to try to jump into the lab of using an actual EDR in the cloud VM. And that's going to take us up to and through the end of class. Some of you may not finish it. We're going to do Elastic, or you can do Lima Charlie to get it configured. And I hope to God they haven't changed their GUI interfaces, because they have a habit of doing that on me. We also have a habit of crashing their entire infrastructures. So I'm going to give you guys the option to choose one. If one doesn't work, just jump over to the other. For those of you that have been doing this with me for a while, you know that there's something called the BHIS hug of death. And the BHIS hug of death is where we send so many people to a vendor, it actually crashes that environment. So it's still running, waiting for it to pull the data. But when it's done, you can do a full download of, oh, there we go, just finished. All right, so we can do a full download of the prefetch data. So I can open up that file, I can open up the results, and I can open up anything in prefetch, which it doesn't look like it had any data in it. So apparently it didn't pull that successfully. Let's go collection content. Let's check our logs. But we get all that information. And one of the things that's really cool is it's actually in a CSV file, so we can get the system's name, and we can like sort it in an Access database and do research on it. So it allows us to do these hunts across multiple different computer systems, all in one shot. All right. So if we're looking at this, we have one more lab in the EDR day that we're going to do today. And this is kind of a choose your own adventure. You all can choose if you want to do Elk in the Cloud, or you can do Lima Charlie, right? And I hope that they haven't changed the interface. If they have, just jumped into another one. If Elastic breaks, a lot of times their authentication portal goes down. And it kind of bothers me. Like, seriously, if I went to a vendor and I'm like, hey, I'm going to bring so many people to register with your product that it may break your registration portal, what is the proper answer to that problem? Like, if I say, yeah, I'm going to bring a lot of people, we might crash your registration portal. What do? Yay. I think yay is a good idea. What else? Make it more robust. Thank you for that problem. A lot of the vendors that we work with are basically like, oh, I don't know. I don't want it to go down. Yeah, can we give you a shirt? So this Elastic one, you're going to sign up for an Elastic Cloud free trial. You're going to sign up for a free trial. You can sign in with your email. You can create your own account. Just get signed up with it. And then once you get in, you're going to go through and you're going to verify and accept. You're going to get into Elastic. You want to see security event analytics. You're going to create your security deployment. You're going to save your deployment credentials with your user ID and password. Then you're going to say, I'd like to explore on my own. You're going to look at Kibana. You're going to do add Kibana, and we're going to install the Elastic agent. So that's going to give you the executable. I recommend doing this inside of your VM in MetaCTF, because you're going to want to download and install that agent on the server 2022 system. So it's going to be a Windows agent, and it's going to give you the little command that you have in here. You can paste that data in agent.txt. So you have that. And then part two is going to go through and it's going to show how to configure it into that Elastic agent. And then part three is going to be pulling the data from Sysmon. So we're moving away from just like testing our EDR. We're moving away from just like, using Velociraptor, but now you have the option of playing with one of two different EDRs. You can go through step-by-step instructions for Lima Charlie, or you can go through step-by-step instructions for Elastic in the cloud. And this is going to take you all the way to, it's going to be 45 minutes for this lab. And then we'll close out with an Ask Me Anything today. So let's put 45 minutes on the clock. I'll come back. We'll do Ask Me Anything. We'll close it out. If it does start getting wonky, like Kibana isn't displaying things, you can wait and just come back later on today when the server has a chance to catch up. Or you can just jump over to Lima Charlie or Lima Charlie over to Elastic. I'm hoping to kind of disperse this out a little bit. But this gives you a chance to play with enterprise grade EDRs. So let's get rolling. I'll see you on the other side. All right, everybody. Let's go ahead and kill the music. And we should, yep, you can load the Sigma detection rule set for Lima Charlie. But it looks like Lima Charlie changed their front end and it looks like Elastic died. Which I was hoping. I know that Elastic died. It probably looks like Lima Charlie might be dead too. I was sincerely hoping that we would, I was sincerely hoping that if we divided it between two different EDR vendors, that we'd be okay. And it turns out that that assumption was wrong. So basically what I'm planning on doing is I'll keep these there. You guys can come back tomorrow and you can go through these and you can play around with it. Hope is everything. Thanks. But this is one of the problems you run into whenever the labs are outside of my control. And I don't know why they just make my life so difficult, but that's okay. I seriously, like if I had the problem of somebody teaching this class and going through all of it to hundreds of students, I'd be kind of excited about that. And I would do everything in my power to try to make that happen. But, you get big companies and it gets more difficult as well. All right. So, should we go through some cyber range challenges? How does that sound? All right. All right. I'm going to stick with the retired challenges because we have some fun ones there. All right. So let's go through, this. I'm going to download this zip file real quick because that takes a little while. Okay. So let's go ahead and let's get started. We got this one. It says all about that base. It is retired. So how do we solve this one, folks? Anyone? Bueller. Oh, you can stream the cyber range. It's fine. I don't care. Yeah. Now you can do base 64D, but the other thing you can do is just pop it right into CyberChef. So we can take this base 64 section and we put it in as input like that. And then we can go from base 64 and there's our flag, right? So there we go. Super easy peasy lemon squeezy. Not hard at all. All right. So that one's fun. And I'm not going to put it in and get points for it. I'm just going to go through them because I need these for my pen testing class. We do write-ups and things like that for these. And yeah, CyberChef is a link that's right up here. What are some other ones we got? Okay. Here we got your coworker, Leo, refuses to tell anyone he was going on vacation. You saw him post a picture of a super cute sloth on social media, and you really, really want to know where this picture was taken. What do we do for this one? Yeah, we can look for EXIF. What is EXIF, everybody? What is EXIF? What does it stand for? I'm still downloading my image, apparently. See if I can open it up here. Go ahead and open that sloth. All right, so here we go. Now, I think you can actually see the EXIF data if you can view details. I'm going to try this a couple of different ways. because there's actually XF tools online. Yeah, I'm just going to do an online XF tool data. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's go online XF tools. There we go. So I'm going to upload a file. Where's my sloth? There we go. I'm going to upload our sloth. Upload the file. And down here, we have our flag right here, Bienvenidos a Costa Rica. So that's the XP comment. Now, where would we find out what XP comment is? Like if we were going to try to understand what the hell is going on, right? We can, one of my favorites, and I'm using this more and more all the time, just go to Chat GPT, right? So if we go to Chat GPT, it's not what I wanted. Let's go Chat GPT. Just go into OpenAI. And go to Chat GPT. Where's my Chat GPT login? I have an account. There we go. Now we're back. All right. So I can be like, what is metadata? Like that. And then Chat GPT is going to explain what that metadata actually is, right? Now I can see like, what is XP comment in metadata? So we can get some information on that. Oh, I mistyped it. There we go. So now it's telling what this flag actually is. So we're actually finding out what is that thing that we're doing. All right, so let's go to another one. I don't want to do that one. Oh, last great zip file. Okay. Think we're gonna have to use, let me copy this link. Copy link address. Let's go into the cloud range and let's use Kali for this. Do this. What else do we got? Change settings, appearance, change our font to be a little bit bigger. There we go. Apply that. And let's do wget. There we got that flag. And I'm pretty sure we're going to be using John the Ripper for this one. You could use Hashcat. You could use Hashcat. Pulling down some stuff here real quick. Let's go Word. Let me figure out what the syntax is for John the Ripper, because John the Ripper has the ability of actually cracking, actually has the ability to crack passwords pretty easily for zip files that we have there. And let me see if I can find the usage for that. That's it. That's what I was looking for. All right. So the first thing that we have to use, there's a utility that John the Ripper has. I haven't used it in a while. It's called Zip to John. And what it does, it takes the header information out of the zip file and it allows you to extract that header information out. And in there, it actually has the hash for the password itself. So if we were to go ahead and let's just do that, zip to John, and we're going to run that against the flag.zip. And I think I have to give it an output. Let's do hash.txt like that. Sorry, I haven't done some of this stuff in a while. There we go. Let's try this again. Put that like so. That's better. All right, but this is the data that incorporates the password hash that puts it out into a format that John the Ripper can actually crack. So if I do that, and no, I don't want the flag, I want the hash. There we go. So there's the hash. All right. So now whenever we're going to crack this, we're going to have to use John. So we're going to use John and just straight John. And then we're going to give it a -- word list. And Kali has a whole bunch of different word lists in the user. Where do I put that? Share word lists. And let's go ahead and give it rock you. Oh no, it's gzipped. Let's open up another Kali terminal and let's unzip it. Come root. And we're going to do gzip -d, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to pull that out of user, share word lists, and rocku.gzip. Takes a couple of seconds for it to extract. When it's done, it's just going to be a straight text file for this. This might suck because if it comes in an image format, the image format is going to be a JPEG. And I want to open that up with Firefox. I don't think Putty has forwarding on that. Oh, I know what we'll do. Yeah, I know how we can get that off. Not a problem. All right, so now let's go ahead and crack that password. There we go. And then we're going to put it against hash.txt. There we go. There's our password. So now we're going to unzip that guy, that password. So unzip. We're going to run that against flag.zip. Going to copy and paste said password. Okay. T*13. There we got the flag.png. Now, oddly enough, what we're going to do is we're going to use the exact same stuff that we did in the labs to get that file off of our Kali box. Because the way I would usually look at this is I would do Firefox and then I would run that against flag.png if I was logged directly into the system with a full GUI. But we don't have that because we're connecting to it remotely. So what we're going to do now is we are going to open up a command prompt and we're going to go through the instructions to basically like shut off our firewall. There we go. And then we're going to change our admin password. I'm going to get my IP address. That. And then I am going to run this long mount command right here for my Kali system. And we're going to give it the, oh, I need to be root for this. Okay. So now cd into home, Kali, we got, there's our flag. All right. So now we're going to mount our Windows system. And then we're just going to copy that flag over. We got it's 10.10.105.187. There we go. And then we're going to copy the flag.png over to mount Windows share. There we go. Now I should be able to open it up right from here. Just going to C. There's our flag. And there's our. Okay. All right. Awesome. It's awesome. Oh, awesome. There we go. All right. So we just did a few labs. Like I said, I hope that you guys like that. That's okay. What do we got? All right. Okay. So yeah, rocku.txt.gzipped is automatically included in that as well. Look at that. Look at that. Nora Smith is up to level 7 so far. All right. So yeah, Roman's art skills. for MS Paint are really solid. And those are just like some quick challenges. What else do we have? Breaching buckets. We actually did a webcast on this one. We have like the actual webcasts should be here, that you can actually pull those down as well. So if you do at Strand.js, that would be really, really, really cool. Binary Shemimary, that's another one. You can just take that, copy it. We can go up to CyberChef, do it as an input, and then we can do from binary to binary. Maybe not CyberChef, but anyway, it's just binary. You just need something to encode it a little bit differently. All right, so what questions do you all have for me instead of watching me work and struggle through things? So, all right. And also, once you guys get to the end of the week, you can click a button and then you can subscribe to the Cyber Range through the ACE Cyber Range, and then you can all keep going. Am I cold? Yes, I am chilly. We're currently working on the HVAC system here at the Massaberry building in Sturgis, South Dakota. And yeah, it's a little cold in my office. My wife's office is really warm, which I think works out because she's usually cold, so it's nice and warm for her, which is cool. We got several people typing. Wow. Yes, I will go play on the rock wall. Justin Walker and I are going to go rock climbing. For those of you that don't know, our office here in Sturgis, South Dakota, we have a kilter board, and it looks like this right here. So we do dynamic rock climbing. The whole board moves up and down. You can change all of these things. Too much caffeine? Not enough today. Microsoft is pushing people away from the whole password expiration practice. What are your thoughts? I still think we need to be changing our passwords every 90 days. And it sucks because I think that there's a lot of people that are, looking at it from like a purely mathematics perspective. And they're like, well, if your password is a strong enough password, then you should be just fine. And you're completely missing out on info sealers. You're completely missing out on websites that have really crappy password storage policies. It's really not rooted, and it's not created by people who do on the ground security. And I know that that's probably a bit harsh, but I believe it to be true. Anybody that's doing on the ground security, and you're looking at info stealer logs, you're looking at password stuffing, credential stuffing, we see it happen again and again and again. And then you also run into the problem with like Mimikatz and LSAS, Local Security Authority Subsystem Service. I still think it's part of good hygiene to kind of rotate out those passwords, especially for larger organizations. And I think a lot of the people that I talk to about this, they're like, oh, well, mathematically, it takes still the heat death of the universe to crack these passwords. And they're right if they're not stored clear text. If they're stored clear text in some third-party website, then it's game over at that point. Would you use Atomic Red Team to test a sysmon config? You can do that, but also if you do sysmon modular by Olaf, inside of sysmon modular, there are configs that you can have that each of the different sysmon events, it'll actually tell you the specific MITRE technique that it triggered on. So really, really just a super cool tool to play with on this. But if you look at it, I'm going to be updating the class, moving away from Swift on security to sysmon modular, because when you get a hit, the filtering that's in sysmon modular has the capability of telling you the MITRE technique on it, which is just really, really cool. How long do we have access to the free cyber range? Until the end of this week. You'll have access till the end of this week, and your score will still be there. Like whatever you achieve during this week isn't going to go away. So I want you all to use it as like an anti-siphon certified or ACE-T certified professional, what level you are, and then share that link with prospective jobs that you're going to. Oh God, kilter board with lights. Yes, it's a kilter board with lights. The avocado story. Okay. So the avocado story, somebody's asking, how do the elections impact the rest of the world from a cybersecurity perspective? I don't know. We can speculate. Honestly, I don't know. So sit and wait. It's not something we'll talk about that later, but let's do the avocado story. So I introduced you guys to my mom with the with the Rita AC Hunter lab, right? So you guys all kind of got to know her. So while we were down at the Cancer Treatment Centers of America, I was actually teaching a SANS conference out in Scottsdale. And there was a hotel there, really great hotel. They had a great courtyard with a pool. It was beautiful. And right next to it was right in the same building, actually, was a steakhouse. And it was a pretty upscale steakhouse. And at this point, my mom was still eating, but she couldn't eat very much of anything. But one of the things she could eat that had good calories and good protein and good fats were avocados. So she was a food service director for a school system all through my childhood. So she had like 35 years food service director. It was crazy. So she knew all of the different ADA compliance things, and she knew the law inside out and backwards in South Dakota, and it's not that different in Phoenix, Arizona. So we go into this restaurant and we get seated, and she has this avocado. And she tells the waiter, she said, I know that you guys I cannot bring in my own food. However, I can give you this avocado and you can prepare it for me. And then you will charge me for this avocado. And the waiter got really, really, really uncomfortable, like crazy uncomfortable, and got the manager. The manager comes up to our table, points at us, and says immediately, get out of my restaurant right now. And we're like, what? And by this point, my mom had lost all of her hair from chemo. And the guy was like, get out of the restaurant right now. Get out now. Wouldn't let us talk, wouldn't let us say anything. And my mom's like in tears at this point because, she's fighting cancer, and chemo makes you emotional or something. And so we leave and we order room service, and they had these really great lamb lollipop things that were just really, really good. So we had those. And my mom was pretty frustrated about it. And I had a Sands at Night talk, and I presented the Sands at Night talk I think I finished at like 9, 10 o'clock. And I asked everybody in the room, we had like 60, 70 people. I said, can you all come and help me? I want you all to come with me over to the restaurant. And I explained to them the whole situation with the avocados. And we're going to go up to the restaurant and we are going to all ask if we could be seated and then ask them if they have avocados because they didn't have any avocados on site. They wouldn't help my mom at all. So we all lined up and we went one at a time to the front desk and we're like, hi, could I get a table? Yes. And do you guys have avocados by any chance? And then finally, the older manager, the more senior manager came out. He goes, I don't know what's happening here, but as of right now, you're all trespassing. Get off our property. And I thought that was enough of that. That was it. Good night, everybody. And I went to bed. Came into class the next day, and one of my students came up to me and he said, hey, have you seen the reviews for that steakhouse on Google? And I'm like, no, I haven't. Go look at them. They had created a program that automatically submitted reviews via Google Maps to that steakhouse, where they gave them 1-star reviews over and over again with a variety of the text from the worst reviews. Like there was a website that had a listing of the worst reviews ever submitted. And I mean, it was like rats are living in the place. They set my kid on fire. It was bad. And drove their stars down to 1.5 stars overnight. And I'm like, well, that's just fun. I'm like, yeah, I do not condone nor endorse this, but wow, game knows game. Impressed. And then I had another one of my students who worked for a local like food delivery company. He just said, yeah, I just ordered, since they didn't have any avocados, I just ordered 1 ton of avocados to be delivered right to the front door of this place today. And when it was delivered, they delivered the pallet of avocados directly to the front door in such a way that you could not get into the restaurant. Like the door was like blocked by this pallet of 1 ton of avocados. So that was all pretty funny. So the manager of the place that kicked my mom and my dad and me out comes over to the hotel and is very, very angry with this whole entire thing and demands that I stop it immediately. And I'm like, look, man, this is out of my hands. I just told these people the story, and now they're just kind of like, I guess, you need to treat your customers a little bit better. And hopefully we've learned from this lesson. This went all the way up to the owners of Hilton. who thought it was funny. And then later on in the day, I got a phone call from the Sands manager on site, and they said, "Yeah, you need to have a meeting immediately with the managers of the restaurant." And I'm like, "Oh my God, I'm going to get sued. This is going to be fantastic." Like, this couldn't be any better. Right. So I get into a room and it's the old manager. The dude's got like white hair and glasses. And then the younger manager who's got like slicked black hair that's all slicked back, you know, pop collar down halfway down his chest, wearing a gold chain. And the old manager looks at me and he goes, "My manager here would like to tell you something." And the guy looks at me and he goes, "I'm sorry. I didn't know you were famous." And I'm like, "Okay, so two things. One, not famous. And two, you should never treat anybody like that, like ever." And they said, "Could you please call people off?" And I said, "Sure, I'll call people off from this conference. I'll ask them to stop. I already have, but I can shut that down." And then they said, "Can you also call the Cancer Treatment Centers of America?" I'm like, "What?" So apparently, my mom went for treatments the next day, and she told the Cancer Treatment Centers of America in Phoenix, Arizona, that this had happened, and they said that's a violation of the Americans with Disabilities Act, and they got their lawyers involved, and they had called the restaurant, and they were threatening a lawsuit at that point. So they got very, very contrite by that whole entire thing out there. So that was kind of fun. So I keep getting a CAPTCHA and stuff wrong unless I'm connected through a VPN. Yeah, your IP address may have been misused, so just use a VPN on that as well. Any recent books, movies, TV shows that you enjoyed? I'm a big fan of the author John Dies at the End. The author's like fake name is John Woo or John, I think that's his name. He has his real name now in his books, and I'm reading the series Futuristic Violence in Black Suits, which is really, really, really good. I just like his writing; it's insane, and it's very, very, very humorous. I like that quite a bit. Looking for something to scratch my itch. I've read all the Mistborn series, like The Way of the Kings quite a bit, and the Kashmir. Pretty happy with those books. One of the books that I recommend to everybody is All the Birds in the Sky by Charlie Jane Anders. Let me see if I have any other books that I recommend here. So let me go to my Kindle. Um, oh yeah, so Zoe is too drunk for this dystopia is kind of fun. Um, I tried to read the Spellmonger series whenever it got to the point of um it was like, yeah, then he slept with a 15-year-old girl. I'm like, what the hell? So I stopped that series. It was one that was like recommended to me, and it was kind of fun, but that just like freaked me out. The Sword of Kaijin, Kaigeen by M.L. Wang was really, really good. I like that. Deep Sky was good. I like Deep Sky quite a bit. Starter Villain by John Scalzi was another book that I enjoyed quite a bit as well. Sorry, I'm just kind of going through books. Skyward series by Brandon Sanderson. I finally got around to reading Hyperion. I had never read Hyperion by Dan Simmons, and Hyperion is one of the best science fiction books I've ever read. The sequels, not so much. I don't think that those were as good as some of the other ones out there. Slow Time Between Stars was really good. Falling Bodies was really good. Singularity Trap, also a really, really good book. I like that one. What else do we got? Corporate Rock Sucks. The Rise and Fall of SST Records was good. Nope, there's just a bunch of really interesting books that are out there. All right, so there you got some books. So we got some chances for you guys to look at that. As far as like TV shows, right now I'm really liking The Legend of Vox Machina. I like that series is a lot of fun as well. I can't. I tried watching the Rings of Power second season, and I'm not one of those people like they're not following the Lord of the Rings. I don't care. I just want it to be good. But the second season is some of the dumbest writing I've ever read in my entire life. Like everybody's like these rings are by Sauron and they're evil, but they're so pretty. We're gonna keep them. There's no way this is a trap. Just so frustrating. Just so frustrating. Could you have hunted for a Meterpreter and Velociraptor? You could have. Absolutely. A number of ways, just dumping the processes and looking for PowerShell execution as well. So you could pull that down. Cancer Treatment Center of America. I really, really liked going to Cancer Treatment Center of America. This is going to get hard. At the end of my mom's treatment, she was one of the first people that got tested and treated for with Keytruda and a mix of some other drugs. She got a cocktail. And we went in, and this is the last day we were at Cancer Treatment Centers of America. She had this, like, she was having like x-rays all the time. And the nurse said, "Hey, I just got the x-rays and they're amazing. Like, the cancer has exploded. Like, it's literally destroying the cancer." And she was in an experimental study. And I remember we were super excited. There was a lot of tears, really, really, really happy because we thought that there was a chance. Because, you know, the survivability of pancreatic cancer is low, like less than 5%, which is zero. I mean, that's what got Steve Jobs. So, like, literally all the money in the world and all the guns and all the gold won't take it. And they were all excited. They were all excited. And then we came in after lunch to talk with the doctor. And we had two doctors. We had the director and we had a police officer and we had three attorneys in the room. And the doctor calmly told us, "That's it. You're out of the program." And we started talking with them about what do you mean? We thought that this was really, really good news. And, you know, a whole bunch of the cancer cells have decreased in size. They've actually blown up. Like that means they started disintegrating. And this is just insane. What the hell is going on? And the doctor looked at us again and said, "You're out of the program." So we pushed and they said, "Well, one of your cancer sections grew." And I was reading the radiology report, and it said it possibly may have grown, but it also may have been that it turned and it appeared to be larger. And the radiologist recommended another like month of like testing and to see if it actually was growing. What we found out is my mom was just a guinea pig, and at no point were they interested in actually like saving her. It was just she was part of a study. They got the data that they wanted for the study, and then they moved on. So yes, I loved the Cancer Treatment Centers of America until they made that calculation about it. So there you go. Okay, what else do we have? I'm gonna go all the way down to the bottom and work my way up. I've heard the existence of malware that can jump from RDP onto the host computer. Yes, it is true. So how that works is a .rdp file. So here we go. Let me show you how that works. This is rogue RDP. I'm going to put this in the chat as well. There you go. But we actually have the ability of creating like a honeypot RDP server to be able to do that. So what happens is whenever the like client machine logs in, you can set it up so it mounts a bidirectional share, so you can share data back and forth via RDP. And we take advantage of that for honeypots, and you can actually send .rdp files to exploit some environments of that as well. Thank you for being what you are. What did you do? CCDC. I was asked recently to run a return to my local community college, help them prepare. They have a practice invitational. What labs from your all of them? All of them. Specifically looking at logs and log analysis. Any of the labs that have anything to do with logs, make sure you're doing those labs. Okay, what else? Okay. We got Cloud VM. We're using, yep, you can use it to solve meta CTF challenges. Absolutely. All right. All right, everybody. If you don't have any more questions, let me go down to the bottom. For the Velociraptor, what artifacts can you use to identify the interpreter commands? You would have to enable sysmon on your system, and then you can pull down the the logs, the sysmon operational logs with Velociraptor. Is what you do. What do I use to find data and PCAPs? I personally, there is a lab called the TCP dump lab, Sophia. That kind of gives you the first steps that I do looking for frequency and beaconing on that as well. So check that out. You have a Wireshark lab, which also gives you the usage of statistics and doing analysis on it. So look at the Wireshark lab and the TCP dump lab as well. All right. So with that, everybody, let's get out of here. I will see you all tomorrow. I'll love you tomorrow. You're only a day away.
All right, everybody, have a good evening. We will see you tomorrow, same time, same place. Go ahead, Ryan, kill it with fire.